Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar titled Shelters and Temporary Housing for Refugee Claimants. My name is Bahar Taheri, and I'm the project consultant with the BC Refugee Hub, and I'll be guiding us through today's session. I'm joining you today from the unceded traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nations, which lies within the shared territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, Kakite, Squamish, and Stolo nations. It's important for me to acknowledge the lands that I'm privileged to live, work, and raise my children on as a way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of these lands. Acknowledgement for me is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. ISSBC's BC Refugee Hub would like to gratefully acknowledge the funding for this project from the province of British Columbia through the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills. So for anyone who's not as familiar with the BC Refugee Hub, we started in 2015 with the arrival of Syrian refugee families. It started in a partnership between ISSBC and it was funded by the province of British Columbia. So that's about 10 years that we've had this online resource hub running. Today, our focus is on refugee claimants through the BC Safe Haven funding. We offer a wide range of tools, fact sheets, and training sessions like this one to support the sector and promote services across British Columbia. We have the BC Safe Haven Service Directory. So the BC Refugee Hub maintains a service directory that is updated regularly. It includes programming details and specific referral contacts. You can find the link to this BC Refugee Hub directory in the chat box, and you can also find it on the BC Refugee Hub. I'll post the link in the chat box shortly. And you can stay connected with us through our weekly updates and monthly e-newsletters. We also collaborate regularly with our partners in the BC Safe Haven Resource Network, for example, with VAST, MAP BC, and with AMSA. So if you have any events, services, or programs you'd like us to feature, please send them our way to refugeehub@issbc.org. I would now like to introduce Kieran Davis, Program Specialist with AMSA, to provide us an overview of the BC Safe Haven Resource Network led by AMSA.
Thank you, Bahar. I'd like to go ahead and start us off with a land acknowledgement on the next slide. As a provincial umbrella association, AMSA acknowledges that BC is on the unceded homelands of First Nations who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. We recognize the privilege that we have as settlers on this land and acknowledge that AMSA's operations are on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. As an organization, AMSA is committed to creating a safe space for Indigenous voices. The Safe Haven program provides key supports to refugee claimants and other humanitarian and vulnerable newcomers. And the Safe Haven Resource Network is a collaboration and partnership-focused program that supports direct service providers through targeted capacity building activities. This collaboration includes multiple partner organizations who play a key role creating resources for direct service providers. The BC Safe Haven Resource Network has 4 initiatives, each of which has specific partners who collaborate to create resources, trainings, and other supports. So we have capacity building activities include webinars like this one, fact sheets, toolkits, and many other resources, as well as supporting organizations to develop humanitarian movement plans and coordinating working groups for frontline service providers and leadership to come together for collaboration. Our mental health activities include in-person workshops, e-learnings, and information sessions, and a phone line for frontline service providers seeking support as they work with refugee claimants. Our language activities include consultation with lead Safe Haven contract organizations to create a curriculum for Safe Haven language instruction. We do have a curriculum guidelines website with guiding principles and resources that is live now, and I'll put the link to that in the chat shortly. And then finally, our public support gathering arm is engaged through ACES, AMSA's charitable arm, in partnership with United Way BC to build community support for refugee claimants, including public awareness, donations, volunteerism, and other community-based supports. And finally, I'd like to encourage you to connect with AMSA on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter, and visit our website at www.amsa.org for many resources, e-learnings, and recent reports. Thank you, and back to you, Bahar.
Thanks, Kieran. Great. So now, without further ado, we are excited to welcome our first speaker, Saeed Karimi, Senior Manager, Housing Resources and Partnerships at Journey Home Community. Over to you, Saeed.
Thank you, Bahar. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Said, and I'm the Senior Manager of Housing Department at Journey Home Community. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to share a little bit about what we do at Journey Home. So over the next 30 minutes, we will go through several key areas that we uh, provide services for refugee claimants and Journey Home. We will mainly focus on our referral system, on our partnership with developers, networking strategies and community building strategies, and also trends in refugee claimants demographics. And also, we will conclude with summary of best practices and call to action and collaborate with our agencies. And also, I want to emphasize this that, well, today's sessions is about what we have learned in the last almost 20 years that Journey Home has been existed. Of course, there are always areas that we can improve, but I hope that what we have learned and what I share today with everyone would be useful for your organization. And I encourage you, if there's some points that resonates with you most, take notes, and maybe that could be something that you can work on your own in your organization and adjust it in a way that helps you in working with refugee claimants. Because my understanding is, well, most of the attendees today are caseworkers or um, maybe agencies that provide transitional housing for refugees. So I think that would be helpful for you. So let's begin by taking a closer look at what we do at Journey Home and what is Journey Home itself. Here you see our mission statement and vision statement and services that we provide for refugee claimants. Our mission says that inspired by God's love, we are creating caring communities that offer refugee claimants housing, settlement support, and opportunities for connection. Well, Journey Home is one of the faith-based organizations that works with refugee claimants, and as you can see, that is factored in our mission statement that we do provide settlement services and transitional housing, but in a way that we also believe that we should welcome all the strangers coming to us. And the vision that we have at Journey Home is that we envision a society where all refugees experience hope and belonging as they engage in meaningful participation in their community and flourish in all aspects of life. So I want to explain more about our services. As you can see, 3 bullet points there. One of the services that we provide for refugees is transitional housing. The other one is settlement support, and the third one is community connection. So to a little bit dig in each of these services that we provide, we operate like one program that serves different aspects of a refugee claimant's journey. So transitional housing is where families can stay temporarily with while we help them with securing long-term accommodation. Also, we provide settlement support means that we support families to get connected to sources that are available, such as financial sources that are available to refugee claimants or legal support or any other connections that we can help them get settled and get that sense of belonging that it's mentioned in our vision. Because in settlement services or wraparound services, mostly we are focused on providing basic needs like food security, accommodation, which really matters to everyone. But also, I think one of the things that we value at Journey Home is that we also want families that we work with feel that they belong to the community and also they have something that they can also contribute to the community as well. So being in a spot that you just feel like you are desperate and you need to receive help and support from others, uh, mentally is not really a good feeling and a state of mind that you want to be there. So that's why we encourage them that, well, they come to our community events, anything that can make them feel like they are also contributing to the community as well. So our approach actually is in grounded in a collaboration. So we work closely with service providers, agencies, volunteers to ensure that the families are supported across all areas. So one of the most important principles that we have at Journey Home is solution focused support. So we aim to reduce stress for families during what can be a very challenging time for them when they come to us. Because most of the families that we work with, when they come to us, it's their first days or even weeks of being in Canada. And I want to also say that, well, finally, our program constantly evolving. So we pay close attention to what is going on in the sector, and wherever it needs some adjustments that we will see in some slides that we have uh, after this one, that how we try to adjust ourselves and the programs that we offer based on what is happening in the sector. And I'm sure that most of you have seen some changes in the sector happening recently. So with this overview in mind about our vision, mission statement, and services that we provide, I just want to move on and talk about our referral system and how it works and how families will be connected to us. So as you can see, this is our referral, or you see the chart that how it works. So for referring refugee claimants to Journey Home, there are two possible ways that you can do that. The first one is the BC Charms Hub that is available, I guess, to most of settlement agencies. And the other one also is our own website that it's a kind of self-referral system that people can use that application form available on our website to refer themselves to Journey Home. So if they have a I don't know, the equipments that is required, like a tablet or a cell phone or a computer that they can have access to internet, they can easily submit their application form that directly comes to us. And it is also available in multiple languages. So if they are not even fluent in English, they can have it in, so far, they can have it in Spanish, in Kurdish, in Farsi, and in Pashto. So all they need is just get on our website and click on this program accommodation form, and they fill it in a language that it's most convenient for them. So how it works is that once someone submits an application form and requests accommodation to Journey Home, it comes to us, whether it's through our website or BC Charms system, it comes to us for a review. So the way that we do it is that our program supervisor reviews the referrals that we got. And we have some obviously criteria to assess and evaluate the situation and assess the family, and obviously offer the housing opportunity that we have to the most vulnerable person that's been referred to. And our experience is that once we have a vacancy available, that we put it on BC Charms, usually we get tons of referrals. Sometimes it's just like 20 referrals, 25 referrals for only one vacancy that is available. Even though that we explain that whether the like details of that accommodation that is available, because sometimes based on the unit size and how it is furnished, we need a specific breakdown for the family that it can be occupied by like 3 people maximum or 5 people maximum and whatever. But even with that, we just receive referrals that may not be really a good match for that vacancy. But regardless of that, we review every referral that we get and pick the most vulnerable one. The next step is that once on the paper, based on the information that they provided, we narrow down the options to maybe 3, 4 most vulnerable case. Then we give all those families a call. And the way that we do it is that whether on the form it says that what is their level of English. So that helps us to see if the family is able to speak English if we give them a call and want to invite them for assessment meeting or ask some basic questions that maybe is missed in the on the form. Or if they say like they're fluent in other language, because it asks about their primary language, we usually try to have a volunteer before we give them a call, so we can ask the questions. The other thing that has been helpful for us is that our team is really diverse team. So we have the staff. I mean, overall, our team can speak 12 languages, which is really an asset. So our caseworkers and supervisors, most of them are bilingual, and some of them even know more than 2 languages, 3 languages, sometimes 4 languages. We have a caseworker that knows 4 languages that are also languages that it's very helpful that most of people, refugee claimants, come from those countries. So that is one way that we make this happen. And the other one, obviously, is that using volunteers that they can speak that language. So we give the family a call and then invite them for assessment meeting. In assessment meeting, we go through certain criteria that how one family will be prioritized over the other one. And criteria could be like medical situation and health condition that they have. It could be someone, if whether it's a single parent, single mom with kids, or there's like um, in a family, even though they're a couple, there's a pregnant mom, or their social isolation also is considered, that if they are now placed in friend's house, in a family house, if they have anyone in Vancouver that they can like get help from. Those are the things that we consider when we do the assessment. And then let's say once it's done and one family is selected to be housed in our program, then we move on with doing the intakes. And the intake actually happens like in 2-3 hours. There are some paperwork that needs to be done, and then we move the families to our program accommodation or the unit that is available for them. One thing that we have learned, and I think it's worth to mention here, is that, well, you need to get back to whoever referred the family to you and acknowledge the receipt of the form and the referral, because sometimes they, like the families that are being referred, they don't know that they are referred if it was not through self-referral on our website. And that gives us, that simple step gives us a bit of relief that someone is following up on their application and there might be an opportunity. So being on like that state of mind that you don't know whether next day or at night you will have a place or not. So knowing that, well, if I can just move on 2 or 3 nights, then there will be someone that can help me, or we will eventually have a place. That's very important that we always do that. We always let the agencies that have referred people to us that we are working on it, and within maybe 2 days from now, within a week from now, within 10 days from now, we may have a place for them. So then they can get back to the family and let them know. And that could be a peace of mind for them that, okay, so if I can handle it for a week, then I will eventually have a place. So that's about our referral system and how it works. So next stage is that, well, they move to transitional housing, right? And then how that transitional housing is provided. There are different ways that we provide transitional housing, but one of them is through partnership with developers, which is explained in the next slide. One of the ways that we provide transitional housing for refugee claimants is through partnership with developers. And there are different ways that you can provide transitional housing or temporary accommodation for refugees. But one of the ways that we found really helpful, and it's a kind of win-win system or strategy for working with housing providers, is through a program that we call it Meanwhile Spaces. And why it's called Meanwhile Spaces, it's because it's through partnership with developers. Meanwhile, they have a building or a house that it's sitting vacant for redevelopment purposes. So that's actually an initiative that Journey Home started a while ago, almost 4 years ago, and we found it very helpful. It actually helped us double our capacity for transitional housing in Metro Vancouver. The way that it works is that we approach to developers, and it could be through connections that has been built before, or even as simple as cold calling and connecting with them and explaining about what we offer, uh, or events that it's related to housing, or providing accommodation for refugees or affordable housing and things like that. We always try to be there and make connections and explain about meanwhile space model, so developers will be interested to know more about that. So how it works is that we approach to them and we explain that we are an organization that provides temporary accommodation for refugees, and we recognize that you have some buildings in certain areas, maybe in different cities, that are sitting empty for redevelopment purposes. And usually, I assume you all know that these permits will take sometimes years, and developers cannot even rent or use the buildings that are sitting empty because they have already applied for development applications. So technically, they cannot rent the place to anyone. And that's where the opportunity exists for us, for organizations like us, that we go, so like we won't be your tenant. We don't want to rent this place. And technically, you can't also rent it because you already submitted a development application and you are in the early process of developing the building. But we can enter into a partnership with each other. So there are no legal obligations on each side that they be concerned or make them concerned that, oh, what if we give this building to this organization and then people don't move out, because based on the RTA and like residential tenancy agreement, there are definitely there are some rights for tenants that you cannot easily move them out. But when you enter into a partnership and explain that how this works, they are really interested to do that because they don't see any risk in it for them technically, and then actually there's some benefits for them because for security reasons, technically their building is occupied, so there's no concern for them to pay for security for that building. The other thing is that it helps them with tax reduction. Empty homes tax will be waived for the developers because technically their building is not empty anymore and it's used. And the agreement that we signed with them helped them that they submitted to the city which their building is in it. Then they'll let them know that, well, our buildings is actually occupied. And overall, there's also a good impact on community and social impact that they make that helps them with their reputation in the city and in the community that they are building these new buildings. So that's how it works. One of the things that I want to mention here is that, well, they will be happy if you have clear agreements with timelines and responsibility, and tell them that this is how it works. Because as I mentioned, what their concern is that, well, how we can benefit from this and can help without having any headache, because they don't want that headache dealing with people moving in and out. And that's where we take care of all those things. So we act as a liaison between families and a developer, so technically they don't get involved at all. They just sign an agreement with Journey Home and the rest is done with us. We act as a property manager that manages everything, moving in people, moving out people, signing agreements with people, let them know that what are the suite rules, everything, and then we move them out and give the units back. We acknowledged some of the ways that you can make partnership with developers to do the same thing in your organization, because I can say that right now, at least most famous developers working in Metro Vancouver, they have heard about Meanwhile Space model, because and I know that previously there were some other organizations that were doing the same thing, but Journey Home as a leader of doing this model, we actually have talked with many developers, so they are familiar with the program and how it works. But the way that you can do this is that identify the developers with upcoming projects. And it can be as simple as just doing an online search and see what are the current projects that will happen in the area that you are hoping that you can have a transition housing there. And it really is as simple as that. If you are wishing to have a temporary accommodation for refugees, I don't know, in Surrey, in Richmond, in Coquitlam, wherever, then you can just easily search for upcoming projects in that city and see who is the developers, and if the building that they are going to redevelop it's still there, then you can reach out to the developer and talk about that building, so that we are interested to take this building for this program and for this purpose that we want to do. And then obviously I talked about that, well, just share with them the social impact that they make, and share some success stories about how, like in case of numbers, that how many people you have, housed in your program, and if they offer you that opportunity, how that could help people uh, get accommodation, and the numbers will increase, and generally you are in a maybe indirect way preventing homelessness as well. And offer public relations recognition and community engagement. That's something that I talked about, and how this could impact the community that they are building new projects in. And last thing is maintain transparency and flexibility. So that's on us when we work with a developer, that we try to be as flexible as possible. If they have certain criteria that or certain policy and rules that they want us to follow, we try to be as flexible as possible, just to make it happen, because what matters to us is that just we increase the housing capacity because there's a demand in that. Not always everything goes well, so there are some challenges definitely when you do things like this. One of the things that we have faced is uncertain timelines of development projects. So we sometimes know that when we enter into partnership, the units that are offered to us are available for 6 months or 1 year based on the term of the agreement that we sign with developers. But then there's always delays in projects as well. So sometimes they let us know that you can stay longer. But then sometimes based on the market and what's going on with interest rate, everything that matters for them, it's just like they just give us a short notice and say like, well, we just want to move on to the next phase and we need all the units back. So that really impacts the capacity that you have in your organization. Because let's say if you're working with a developer that provided you 10, 12 units, and then in a month or two they want all them back, then your capacity will be decreased significantly. So that's one of the challenges. The other thing is that when you do model like this, that now it's almost 80% of our capacity comes through this model, it's always managing furniture, storage, and logistic, because number of units are going up and down frequently. And there are some moments that you have less units, so you have those furniture that you have provided for a certain number of units, you need to store them somewhere. And then again, there might be some moments that you have more units than you need to provide more furniture. So this is also actually another challenge that we have, that we can manage it with having like certain designated areas that we store furniture, that we can just move things around. And we avoid using like large donated items. We ended up having a certain budget through our funding to buy furniture, mostly from IKEA, that are like easy to assemble and easy to move. So we can just assemble them, and then once we want to give all the units back, we just put them in a box and back and move it to another place. Limited notes of move out. So I actually talked about that. And the other thing is that balancing short-term occupancy with stability is that when we tell the families that this is a temporary accommodation and might be only for up to 3 months, that's another challenge with the families, because if they have kids that already got registered in a school and made some friends, they feel like this neighborhood that their transitional housing was in, it's really a good neighborhood, so they really are reluctant to move on to another place and another city. So those are also the challenges that we always make sure that we communicate all these things in advance before moving them in, and explain that, well, this is all temporary. You may find this neighborhood very good and convenient, but this keep that in mind, that, well, this is the average rent for this neighborhood. So based on your source of income and what you receive now, this might not be really a good fit for you for now. So we just try to consistently repeat that, because they need to keep that in mind, that even if they register the kids at school, or if they I don't know, get connected to community, that this transitional housing is in that, it's all temporary and they need to move on. But always balancing that, it's a bit of challenge for our caseworkers as well. um, but despite all these challenges, I want to say that we rely on planning and documentation and a strong communication. These three factors that we plan ahead means that if we know that in a certain time we will lose some units, we always try to have additional units in advance that we can replace them. And we set timelines with a new developer that, oh, okay, so we can start this partnership in the next 2 months, and we know that that timelines would perfectly fit with the other timeline that we have with another uh, developer that we can just give those units back and replace them with new ones. And documentation also matters. I know that in our sector, sometimes it happens that we verbally agree on something and we just want to make things happen and we don't have things documented very well. But and actually that was our experience when I joined Journey Home. We actually had a housing provider that we were working with them for, I think, 10 years without even having anything written. So that's actually something that we learned, that we need to document everything, because at the end of the day, when it comes to responsibilities, when it comes to repairs, when it comes to maintenance, all those issues, that's where it gets a bit tricky, that people, they don't know who need to take care of those things. So document everything. It's very important. And strong communication is that we always keep housing providers updated on what's going on, how many people have been served in the units that they provided, where they from, the story of impact that we share with developers, that we always let them know that, well, through this partnership, this is what happened. And this certain number of people have been helped. This certain number of families have been helped. They have moved to permanent housing and all the impacts that they made. So that encourages them. And actually, we have found it very helpful. Sometimes they even use it on their social media and share about their partnership with us, just for their social impact that they make in the community. So always try to communicate that as well. Whoever is your housing provider, just let them know that what was the impact and how that was possible through the partnership. We usually give them like quarterly report, but it can be even a monthly report or mid-year report and 1 year report as well, or annual report as well. One thing that I want to talk here about is that how we facilitate networking, mostly for families. So one of the ways that we do that is that we have shared, or what we call it, community houses, that people have their own private bedroom, but they share common areas like kitchen and living area and dining area with one or two more families. And we help that helpful. We think that that would be helpful for the families, that they can get, like, have a chance to get to know each other. We intentionally um, uh, want them to share meals. We have a housing host for community houses, and actually our housing host role is to just act as a liaison between different families from different culture. And that role actually is very important. If you run a community house, I highly encourage you to have a housing host. And actually our housing host is a living housing host that lives in the one of our community houses, and is daily involved with what's going on in the house, talking with families, even as simple as just listening to their stories if they want to share something, or any concerns that they have will be addressed immediately. If they have some needs that they can not very like easily or openly share with a caseworker that they work with, they feel like that housing host is closer to them because they're living together there. So, and that also gives our staff a chance that get closer to the family and get to know them, so that actually they can also communicate their concerns to our team if it's not been communicated directly by the families. So the caseworkers will be aware of what's going on with the family in the unit, or how they are collaborating with the other family from different culture. And there was lots of learning for us in that, because we actually through that learned that how we can put people together from different cultures, and if there are certain things that actually we need to avoid, if there are some families that they can't get along with maybe a certain culture, or different backgrounds that they come from. We also take that into consideration, and that's all learned through the experiences that housing hosts that we have in community houses shared with us, that how families that are living in a space together can whether collaborate better, or sometimes there are some conflicts that we can predict and avoid that to happen. Uh, we also connect families with faith-based organization, or any other sources that are available. If they come from backgrounds that they practice any faith, we ask them that do they want us to connect them to a mosque? Do they want us to connect them to a church? Do they want us to connect them to a community that they will be like connected with other people from the same background and faith, that they may get help from them as well? And we actually found it very helpful when we had most of our families from Afghanistan a couple of years ago. They really got connected very well through a connection at a mosque that we connect them to, and they actually are still connected. They formed even groups that sometimes they come and volunteer with us. So it's really good that we see that, well, connecting people with other sources available in the community actually works, and they really enjoy that. The other thing is that how the former program participants that we had in our program can help new ones. And that actually we found that very helpful as well, is that whenever we have gatherings, we have meetings, we have events that we invite our current program participants, we actually invite some former program participants as well, depending on our capacity, how we can serve people. But we always want the former program participants to sit with our current program participants, and as much as they feel comfortable at the table, that they're sharing meal, they're talking with each other, they share their story and their journey. Because once they hear it from them, from someone that they feel like it's someone who has a first-hand experience, is much more impactful and meaningful for them than when they hear it from us. So that also is something that we really found helpful, and actually consistently do that. So I also want to encourage you, if you are able to be in touch with the program participants that you have worked with a while ago. It doesn't mean that they necessarily need to be a volunteer with your organization. If you still have them in your data and system, that you can invite them to different events that you have. It would be good if you have some former program participants coming to your events and get connected to current program participants, that they share their story and hear from them, and like they can share about their journey and how these steps they went through, and that could be really helpful for the current program participants that you have. Next slide is about uh, best practices for transitional housing. So how we can provide transitional housing in a way that is just more than providing a roof. Because sometimes when we invite a refugee family to assessment meeting or intake meeting, maybe obviously what they are concerned about is that do they have can they have a roof over their head and not being in shelters, or end up being on the street, which is very crucial and very important. uh, but more than that is that, okay, so our job and our responsibility doesn't stop when we just provide that roof or that accommodation for people. Other things that we consider when we work with the families during those 3 or 4 months that they are with us is that we always care about training our staff and volunteers to recognize signs of trauma, which is very important, because sometimes you think that, well, all they need is a food and accommodation. But there are obviously things more than that, that you need to be mindful of that as well. So we always have trainings for our staff. We register them for different training courses, different webinars, workshops that happen in the sector, that they gain knowledge and experience about how do settlement job in a trauma-informed way. So in every interactions that they have with the family, they need to take that into consideration. The other thing is family-centered planning, which means that we always make decisions when we work with a case uh, around the needs of the whole family. So you need to consider that whether if they have children, if they need a childcare arrangement, if they need a schooling, if there are some cultural needs that matters. You need to look at the case as the whole family, not only the main applicant that you're talking about, or only the parents, or even if you're putting them in a shared accommodation, like what I said before. Uh, think that how this family would really feel that they have a safe place and comfortable place. And if you think there is some things that might be a potential conflict, take that into consideration as well. One thing that's very important, and sometimes our caseworkers are not really happy with doing that, is that plan exit from the first day or from day one, which is a bit hard to do and sound like, well, we just welcome them in our transitional housing. It's too soon to talk about when your exit from our program would be. But we really found it helpful that if you just um, keep reminding them that, well, this is not end of this story. This is just a solution for now, and still this journey continues. And we hope that we can support and help you to move to a more permanent place. And if you don't mention that, sometimes families forget that because they're dealing with different things. They've been through tough days. They don't really, um, mentally, they may not really have the capacity to take all of these things into consideration and then really rely on your support. So we keep reminding them that, well, we will work together to move on from this temporary situation to a more permanent place and situation. And that actually is something that I think also, if you're working with a refugee claimant family, you need to be mindful of that as well. The other thing that we found helpful is clear rules and responsibilities. Uh, be transparent as much as you can with the families. That's our approach, that we very frankly and transparent share what we can do for them and what we can't do and what is beyond our capacity. Because when you are working with vulnerable community, obviously your heart wants to do as much as you can for the families, but sometimes we do that in a way that we forget the learning curve for the family as well. So we always try to train our caseworkers and housing department frontline workers that work with the families, that try to balance this, that you be transparent with the families about what you can do for them and in areas that you can support them, but there are also responsibilities that they need to take as well, and make that clear for the family and talk about those things as well, that they move toward independency step by step. One of the other things that I mentioned earlier as well is multilingual communication. So we always try to make sure that we communicate with the families in a way that it's most convenient for them, which is through their own language. So we avoid as much as we can using tools like Google Translate or other equipments that may not really convey the message that you want. So that's why we always rely on volunteers that can speak the family's first language, and also the staff that we have, that we make sure that the message that we wanted to communicate is communicated in the best way that it's understandable for the families, rather than just using text through Google Translate or phone through Google Translate or stuff like that. Um, and the last thing is coordination with referrers, is that we always keep lines open with referring agencies and share intake summaries and ask for joint planning whenever it's needed. So we update them about what's going on. We update them about the family that they referred us, where they are now in their journey toward more like stable housing situation. So they know that when they referred someone, even though that they work with so many people, uh, what happened to the family that we worked with. And actually, we can also collaborate in other way, that, well, if there are some sources that they have available that we don't offer those sources to the families, then we can do this in a like two-way collaboration, that they receive some services from us and they receive some services from the agencies that they were referred to us. So we don't try to disconnect them and say like, well, okay, so if you are referred from this agency, then now you are with us, you can't go back to that agency, or no, you can't ask for services from the agency and from us at the same time. We obviously share that openly, that there are some services that they still can provide for you and they can help you, so stay connected with them as well. But these are the certain things that we can provide for you. Next slide, it's about something that I think these days all of caseworkers or whoever is working in a refugee sector is dealing with, and it's some changes happening in the demographics of refugee claimants that we are receiving. So obviously, most of refugee claimants that we have worked with in the last 5 years were coming from Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. But we are seeing at Journey Home a new trend, and that's about American citizens coming to Canada and making claim uh, in Canada because of what they fear in US for any reason, might be for their sexual orientation, might be from their political opinion or whatever reason. We usually don't dig into details and ask them why, but this is something that I think it's happening in the sector, and you might also encounter some refugee claimants from US that they are US citizens coming to Canada. Um, Different agencies may have different approach and reaction to that, but Journey Home was very open to this and understand that what's going on in our southern neighbor. So we were open to receive American citizens as refugee claimants in our program as well. We actually have some American citizens in our program, and currently I think we have one case still with us, but uh, we just look at them as any other refugee claimant that came to Canada, and if they are not uh, connected to financial sources, if they're not really vulnerable, uh, we obviously won't offer them program accommodation because, as I mentioned earlier in the slides, we try to narrow down cases to the most vulnerable case, and we offer the accommodation to the most vulnerable one. But what our approach is that we don't look at American citizens uh, as a like because it's a new thing that happening in the sector in a different category or sector. We just look at everyone that comes to us in the same way, and we go through equal assessment system with all of them. And if at the end of the day we realize that that case is the most vulnerable one, we move them to our accommodation. As I mentioned, we have had like 3 or 4 cases in the last 4 months. And next slide actually is continue of this, but in a different way. That well, what are the reasons that they come? There could be different reasons, as social reasons or political reasons, and obviously they go under the same RCC process that every refugee claimants will go through. Whether they will be accepted or not, that's not our responsibility to like be worried about that and say like, well, if their claim is legitimate or not. That's not our job, and we don't ask any of our cases that what their story is. uh, and as I mentioned, they will be integrated into our program with the equitable support that we give to all refugee claimants, regardless of their background, country that they come from, and anything else. Just to close the presentation, I want to mention 2 things. The biggest point that I want to leave with you is that the collaboration really matters. And share system, clear referral process, creative partnership with developers, community groups, everything that I mentioned during the presentation make transitional housing possible. And uh, if you if you are connected to a family, or you know a family that is eligible um, for any of these services that Journey Home provides, which might be similar as services that other agencies provide as well, uh, please let them know that how our referral system works and how we can help them with accommodation and temporary housing. And the other thing is that if you're connected to developers, or if you are interested to look into that option and get connected to developers and see how you can increase your capacity, I would be happy to get connected with you and give some tips on how that would work and how you can make that negotiation successful. And the last thing is that if you have any questions about our templates, the agreements that we have with housing providers or different agencies that we work with, uh, partnerships, MOUs that we sign, all this kind of stuff. Journey Home is happy to share templates with whoever wants to take a look at them and might be helpful for them as well. Thank you, everyone. And I'm open, as Bahar mentioned, to questions if Bahar have some questions for me.
Thank you, Said. That sounds, especially with working with the developers and moving folks in and out, on short notice, that's like a real project management skills, right? Like future planning, making sure everything's in the right place, major coordination. So I really
Yeah,
do I probably speak for everyone when I say like amazing work to Journey Home for taking this on. And yeah, this model sounds kind of amazing.
yeah,
It's a
thank you.
win-win for developers and of course for the refugee claimant families. Um, and we will now move to our second group of speakers here. We would like to invite Ina Kovalenko and Susanna Kurakina from S.U.C.C.E.S.S to present next. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We will explore the challenges refugee claimants faced when accessing housing in Metro Vancouver. We'll also review how the shelter system works, what temporary housing options exist, and share practical strategies for frontline workers supporting clients through this process. This presentation has been prepared by the Operation Welcome Home and BC Safe Haven program as part of the S.U.C.C.E.S.S organization. Now, let's take a look at our agenda for today's presentation so you know what to expect. A welcome and introductions, overview, purpose and objectives, challenges in accessing housing for refugee claimants, shelter system overview and referral processes, practical strategies for frontline workers, housing search pathway, what clients can expect, case studies, real story examples, challenges, questions and answers, group discussion. Before we started, I'd like to share a quick note about who we are and how we can support our clients. Operation Welcome Home (OWH) is a pilot project launched to provide housing support services originally focused on Ukrainian arrivals, but now expanded to serve anyone in need of housing assistance. What began as a response to the urgent housing needs of Ukrainian refugees has since evolved into the broader initiative, now working in close collaboration with the Safe Haven project. As a part of BC Safe Haven, we support newcomer refugees across British Columbia to find housing and integrate into Canadian society. BC Safe Haven programs support refugee claimants of asylum seeker to settle in British Columbia. Operation Welcome Home service not only newcomers but also individuals with the following statuses: Canadian citizens, permanent resident, refugee claimants, refugees, work permit visa holders, study permit visa holders, um, asylum seeker, and other. Our service include housing search support, guidance of finding affordable housing, BC housing registration, help completing application and supplemental forms, furniture assistance through Home Start Foundation, professional clothing, access to dress for success women, baby essential, help registering with baby go round, work gear, free construction work attire via working gear, and more. Referrals and supports based on individuals' needs. Now let's talk about some of main challenges refugee claimants faced when trying to find housing. As many of you know, the housing crisis in Metro Vancouver affects everyone. but it's especially difficult for refugee claimants who are new to the country and trying to rebuild their lives. They often face multiple barriers such as limited affordable housing and low vacancy rates. Income barriers. Most claimants rely on income assistance, which is insufficient for market rent. Documentation issues. Many claimants lack the required ID, credit history, or employment records. Language and cultural barriers. Difficulty communicating with landlords or understanding tenancy rules. Discrimination. Refugee claimants may face bias due to status, accent, or family size. Limited availability of supportive housing. Now, let's take a look at how the shelter system works. Shelters play a vital role in providing short term emergency accommodation for people who have no other housing options. They offer a safe place to stay with a bed, meals, and basic support to help meet immediate needs. Most shelters operate on a referral basis, which means clients are usually referred by community organizations such as BC 211, the Homelessness Service Hub, Success Agencies, the agency Mosaic, the Lookout Society, the Salvation Army, and Progressive Housing. Referral process. Client contact a settlement or outreach worker. Worker checks shelter availability and makes a referral. The client receives location and arrival instructions. Some shelters require daily check-in or rebooking. This system ensure that people in crisis can be connected quickly and safely to the right type of support. Now let's move on one of the most important parts of our session, strategies for frontline workers. In our daily work, we often meet clients who feel lost in the housing process. These practical strategies can help us guide them more effectively and make a real differences in their housing journey. First, building strong relationships with housing providers and referral agencies is essential. When workers and agencies communicate regularly, it's much easier to find available spaces quickly and match clients to the right options. Another key strategy is helping clients prepare their documents. Things like identification, references, or proof of income. We also support clients with a registration for different BC housing programs and other organizations. Shows and teach clients how to apply to co-ops. Language can be a major barrier. Providing interpretation or connecting clients with language support services can make a huge difference in helping them understand housing requirements and communicate confidently. Finally, we are educating clients about tenancy rights and constantly conducting workshops and webinars. It's also important to encourage clients to stay connected with several agencies at once. The most connection they have, the better their chances of finding housing faster. These practical strategies can make the process more comfortable and less overwhelming. Now that we have discussed the challenges and temporary housing option, let's take a look at what the actual housing journey looks like for many refugee claimants. This pathway often involves several steps before reaching a permanent housing. The first step is usually an emergency shelter, a safe place where clients can stay when they have nowhere else to go. It's a temporary solution for 30 days with an extension to a few months. Once clients have some stability, the next step is transitional housing. This stage provides a more stable environment from a few months to a few years, often with support service to help families prepare for a long-term housing. The final goal, of course, is a permanent housing, where that an affordable or market unit, sometimes supported by rental assistance programs. Throughout this entire process, clients may need to move several times and will require continuous advocacy, encouragement, and emotional support from frontline workers and community partners. Our role is to help make this journey as smooth and hopeful as possible. And now, my colleague Susanna, the frontline case manager, will continue our presentation further.
Hi everyone, my name is Susanna Kurakina and I am liaison support worker with Operational Come Home from S.U.C.C.E.S.S. In my role, I've seen firsthand that while accessing housing for refugee claimants can be challenging, it's certainly achievable with the right support and persistence. Building a trusting relationship with clients is a key. It lays the foundation for effective collaboration and helps us find solutions together. For example, one of our clients, Peter, name changed, recently arrived in Canada from a war-torn country and was in the process of obtaining refugee status. Our first priority was to help him navigate his situation and secure appropriate shelter. We were able to place him at Belkin House, a high-barrier shelter known for its supportive environment. Based on our experience, reliable and well-managed shelters include Belkin House, Richmond House Emergency Shelter, and New Westminster Stevenston House, all operated by the Salvation Army. I saw some of the representative was present today, so I'm happy to share this. Peter and others send us photos of shelters showing us their living conditions, kitchens, reliable breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sharing their impressions. Peter noted that the shelter conditions were good quality food, comfortable living conditions, and attentive staff. Thanks to the support of this case manager, he gradually began the process of finding permanent housing and employment. Over time, he began assisting her new clients, explaining the shelter's rules, including restrictions on alcohol and drugs, as well as curfew regulations, and guiding them on how to maintain a stable and respectful stay. Another client, Alexa, name changed, mentioned that one of the advantages of staying in shelters is a constant opportunity to practice English. People are always asking questions, wanting to learn, and simply looking to chat, so you end up speaking a lot of English every day. The Salvation Army shelters, in particular, tend to have a great mix of people. There is always someone to play chess with or discuss programming. You meet interesting individuals from all over the world, and it's never boring in the shelters. Every step we take together brings clients closer to stability, turning a complex process into a clear and achievable path, where crisis gives way to safe housing and support. Our clients are our eyes and ears. Despite the lack of permanent housing, communicate and support help him feel safe and confident. These reviews help us and other frontline workers recommend high-barrier shelters appropriately. We also recommend a practical approach. If you can't find a place over the phone or through update listings, don't despair. Visit the shelter in person. Shelters often want to see the client in person and assess with their situation, even if they said that there are no vacancies over the phone. While we receive positive feedback from clients about shelters, it's important to recognize that there is another side to consider. Currently, I work with a senior family, mother, 90 years old, and her daughter, 67 years old, who are being evicted and urgently need a safe place to stay. They are refugee claimants who arrived in Canada more than 1 year ago. So I also want to highlight some of the real challenges frontline case managers face, especially when trying to find shelters for senior people. I've called many shelters, but once staff hears their age, the answer is often, we have no beds or our shelter isn't suitable for seniors. Most shelters have bunk beds or shared spaces that are not safe or comfortable for elderly people. This highlights a major gap. There are not enough shelters that can accommodate seniors safely and with dignity. Unfortunately, other organizations such as Senior Services Society do not always respond. Another major challenges we often face when trying to find emergency temporary accommodation for our clients is the separation of families with children. In the Greater Vancouver area, there are not enough family-oriented shelters that can accommodate entire household together. Once a child turns 19, even if they are still dependent and living with their parents, the shelter system classifies them as individuals. As a result, many families are forced to separate. The 19 years old, or often the husband, is placed in a different shelter while the mother and young children are sent elsewhere. This situation is extremely difficult and emotionally painful for families. A 19 years old is still a young person who needs family support, especially during a crisis. Being placed in a shelter alone, away from parents, can be very traumatic. This issue remains of serious concerns today. We see this situation far too often, and unfortunately, there are still very few solutions available to help keep families together during emergencies. We've seen that accessing housing for refugee claimants is complex, but it's important to remember that it is achievable. By collaborating across agencies and workers, we can provide the coordination support clients need. Frontline workers play a vital role in guiding clients through the shelter and housing system. Step by step towards stability and independence, when the right resources and guidance are in place, clients can move from crisis to stability. Ultimately, every step we take together brings them closer to a safe and permanent home. For further support or collaboration, please reach out to us. Our contact information is provided here for your convenience. Thank you for your attention, and we'd love to hear your questions and experiences. To input helps us grow and improve together.
So thank you everyone for joining us and your continued work with refugees and refugee claimants, especially when it comes to housing. This is the #1 challenge that we hear coming up for this community. And honestly, housing in general is a challenge for everyone living in this province. So, but more so for vulnerable individuals. So thank you all. I know we're all looking for innovative solutions, different ways of doing things that can, connect clients quicker to housing. We also, again, want to thank the province of British Columbia for your continued support and funding. To join our e-newsletter, you can just go to the bcrefugeehub.ca or use the QR code on screen. You scroll to the very bottom and add in your email address. So thank you to our amazing speakers, Saeed, Ina, and Susanna, for volunteering your time today to connect with our sector and everyone joining us today. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
afternoon,
you.
everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much to invite us. This amazing presentation.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Saeed. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.